Spartans and Athenians wage war when 300 goes toe-to-toe with 300 Rise of an Empire. I hope you've had a hearty breakfast, because tonight we dine in feuds. There are really only two people that matter in these films. In 300, it's King Leonidas, played to perfection by Gerard. Pretty much every movie I've done since 300 has been terrible. Butler. Seriously, this guy had so much potential after 300, but decided to go the rom-com route. And Gamer. Let's not forget Gamer. Let's keep our eye on the prize, and his performance as the Spartan leader is nothing short of spectacular. He belts out lines that could make a rock jump up for battle. That's how moving they are. His presence alone commands your attention, and he steals every scene he's in. But for as over-the-top testosterone-filled as these films are, it was refreshing to see a female kick ass in the sequel. Eva Green plays Artemisia with such ease, I almost wonder if she wasn't slaughtering the cast and crew off camera as well. I wish the same could be said for our lead, Sullivan Stapleton. This guy had huge sandals to fill when he took the role of our protagonist for the second outing, and unfortunately he doesn't come anywhere close to filling those puppies out. I understand they didn't want to do a copy and paste character, but this guy had no presence. He was a rock. There are a couple carryover characters from the first movie in the sequel, but something felt a little off about him. Particularly Xerxes, who looked shorter, not as broad, and definitely not as powerful. His voice didn't seem to have that same filter applied that it did in the first film. Dilius is back, which was kind of odd because I don't remember him being in any of the trailers. And he was actually in the film more than I thought he was going to be. It was nice, just unexpected. 300 had a simple and straightforward story. That's all I wanted. Nowadays, films pile on plots to the point that there isn't a conclusion to half of them. But in this movie, we have a group of 300 men, led by Leonidas, to head off a Persian invasion. They go up against a flotilla, made-up word, of giant beasts and ninja assassins, mysterious creatures and beings from all over the world. There's some back and forth between the battles and the conspiring taking place at Sparta. Speaking of which, I forgot cast member Lena Headey. She's in both movies. She represents Queen Gorgo. And she's really the unsung hero both times around. She gets to play the good guy, which is a nice change of pace from the crazy bitch she plays on Game of Thrones. 300 ends with a glorious showering of arrows on our team of men as Xerxes is pierced with a well-placed spear. Granted, it could have been better placed, as in right through his skull, but I guess this movie's trying to be historically accurate like the comic. I find it fascinating that people get upset and downright pissed at the over-the-top nature of this movie, when in fact that's exactly what it's set out to be. The movie in the comic is told through the eyes of Dilios. It's a classic fisherman's tale. Everything's blown out of proportion for the sake of telling a fun story. Speaking of fish, rent Tim Burton's Big Fish. It's probably the last good movie he made, and it's actually a really fun take on this very topic. Not the 300 battle, the whole fisherman's tale. Rise of an Empire has a unique take to its storytelling, as it's a prequel/sidequel. Yeah, that's a thing now. It shows us how Xerxes came to be, and more interestingly, how his sister was turned from a sweet, innocent young girl into a hardened, twisted, crazy bitch like she is today. The film actually doesn't progress any further than the first movie does. It just tells the same story from a different vantage point. Now we follow a more pathetic hodgepodge of characters ranging from farmers and petty soldiers. The majority of the battles take place at sea, which leads to some pretty interesting ideas, but nothing that rivals the first. That seems like an appropriate time to segue into action and effects. Director Zack Snyder makes some of the most amazing, intense, visceral experiences on film. This right here though, this 300, it's still his crowning achievement. Shot entirely in front of a green screen in a small studio was ballsy enough, but he does so with an almost unrecognizable cast at the time. Watching these men speed up and slow down to decapitate limbs, dodge weapons, and simply stand in awe of the sights around them is pure adrenaline-filled awesomeness. It's like playing Mortal Kombat while constantly slamming Red Bulls and getting hit in the dick repeatedly and not feeling a thing because you're so high on power and adrenaline and testosterone and
A wind has blown across Greece.
Sadly, Snyder only came on to produce the sequel, and it shows. Granted, Rise of an Empire is still a pretty looking film. There's no denying that. But it's missing that creative spark it had the first time around. But it does have plenty of fun and unique sequences nevertheless. The tracking shot to introduce our new cast alone is extremely entertaining, and some of the ship battles lead to some interesting shots above and below the bloody waters. Plus there's a horse that jumps out of the water onto the ship, galloping, decapitation, gallop, decapitation, flip off the horse dies, of course. I don't even know where I'm going. Am I doing a nursery rhyme now? Let's move on to round 4. Had no idea going into the music category that 300 was going to be such a hot topic issue. Turns out that's exactly the case. Here I thought I'd be able to just coast by music like I usually do, not giving 2 shakes of a lamb's cock. Tyler Bates scores this pretty standard and even familiar at times due to the Greek and Latin sounds. Turns out they sound so familiar because they're ripped right out of other movies. Plagiarized. Voice keeps getting higher. Elliot Goldenthal composed the music for the 1990 film Titus, and it didn't take long for him and others to notice those notes repurposed for 300. Warner Brothers wasn't aware that that was going on until after the fact. They apologized, they made amends, but it was too late. The damage had been done. Critics panned the music. Some refused to review it at all. The music was obviously changed in the sequel, as was the composer. Taking over the reins is none other than Junkie XL. That's the name a person calls themselves. I suppose it's appropriate, given that this is a sequel/sidequel/prequel based on a movie that's based on a graphic novel that's based on true events, kind of. 300 is by far the best film of the two, if you ask me, which you obviously did. If you disagree, and I don't know how you possibly could, tell me in the comments. Or you can even tweet me at moviefeuds, because I'm pretending I give a shit about Twitter right now. More than just reviews, this is Movie Feuds, or Feud On. What do you like better? I don't even know what more than just reviews, this is Movie Feuds means. The other guy I had on the show, he came up with that. We could go with Feud On. I mean, Feud On. It's on.